And just to clarify something, my name is Bob Beach, but it's totally cool to shorten it to Bob. Thank you for that. So going through some career transitions recently. For the last 12 years, I worked as a substitute teacher in Central New York schools. But in the fall, I'm going to be a history professor at Utica University. How about that? Except that's not what happened. What happened was, for the last 12 years, I was a history professor at Utica University. And now in the fall, I'm going to be a substitute teacher for Central New York school systems. So you know applause after that. See, because I hesitate to tell people that I'm a historian. It's not because I'm unemployed, but because people generally get an impression of me that they should not be getting. Right? I'll tell them that, and they'll be like, ooh, you must know a lot of stuff. You must make a good living. You must really have your shit together. It's like, none of that stuff is true. I am a total and complete disaster, folks. I once got kicked out of college for turning my dorm room into a nightclub. Okay? I might have 3 degrees and a PhD on the way, but I'm still on Medicaid. You got me with my life together? Is that what happens when you leave an upwardly mobile job in corporate food service to pursue a PhD in history? No, folks, I actually found the best way to unintentionally exacerbate anxiety and depression. And it's been 5 years of anxiety and depression, and I've had enough. I guess that's why I do this, comedy. You'd actually be surprised at how similar history and comedy are. Historians will go to mics, right? We call them conferences. They usually have them at a hotel with a bar, right? We all get drunk and we share our research in the hopes that someone's gonna notice us. We'll be like, hey Bob, we really liked your research. You wanna turn that 15-minute presentation into 45? The only difference is that at the end of tonight's show, Mike Peters is gonna pay me money. You know what I got for my last job? It was one of those 5 to 45 things. Guy came up to me, he was like, hey, I liked your research. You want to turn it into a book chapter? So I did. Took me 3 months. They published it with LSU Press. You know what I got? I got a free copy of the fucking book, folks. That's it. Also got any additional copies at 40% off for personal use. I don't know what personal use means. I can't smoke the book. Not sure what you're talking about. But I do have a trunk full of these. So if you want, meet me outside after the show. I'll give you an autographed copy we'll go 5% off list. Just don't tell LSU Press. So I do study drugs, and that's exactly what it sounds like, except I also study drugs as a historian. My dealer loves that joke. No, I don't really have a dealer. I have to go to him. Yeah, I still meet my drug dealer for weed at gas station parking lots like it's the 90s. I feel a lot more comfortable in a parking lot, I'll tell you that much. But it is definitely awkward talking to my history colleagues about this, right? Because they're all like, do you actually smoke weed? Like, how much do you smoke? And I don't know how to answer that question, because I smoke a lot of weed, actually. And I'm not sure about how much of that information to convey. So, it's an ongoing struggle. Speaking of awkward situations, I think I want to get something off my chest before we go any further. Because I was out in the parking lot before the show tonight. And I gotta tell you, saw some glances, heard some whispers. And I'll tell you what, I know how a rumor gets started, and we all know those can very easily spiral out of control. People can get hurt. So in the interest of full disclosure, I'm gonna tell everyone what's going on with the shit on my elbows. It's leprosy. And according to my contacts at the CDC, as long as I stay, with a 100-yard perimeter, everyone's going to be fine. Actually, as I heard myself say that out loud, I probably should have said something before I came in here. Oops. But it's not leprosy, obviously. I'm not going to tell you what it is because that's my personal medical information and none of your goddamn business. Don't care what rumors get started. But I do have a pretty major life announcement to make. For the first time in my entire life, I finally fulfilled one of my New Year's resolutions. How about that? Right? That's right, I finally stopped the $10 auto withdrawal from Planet Fitness. That wasn't even this year's resolution. I've been trying to get out of that contract for a decade. And I knew immediately that place and I were not going to get along, right? I have an instinct for these things, right? I'm the kind of guy who always follows his gut, right? Unless I'm crab walking. It's a bodily orientation joke for you. And as soon as I crab walked into that Planet Fitness, I knew it wasn't going to work. In my defense, I smoked weed before in the parking lot, so crab walking happens. But as soon as I walked in there, they started telling me the rules, right? They got the no judgment zone over there. They're telling me all the rules. They're telling me there's no yelling, there's no grunting. I'm like, wait, hold on, no grunting? How the hell am I going to get up on the treadmill? Judgment-free zone my ass. But I will say, I am a little bit self-conscious about my weight. I always have been. It's kind of like the elbow leprosy stuff. But it's been my whole life, right? And I think I realized why I've always had this problem, and that's because I was never invited to a Planet Fitness birthday party when I was a kid. I didn't even know they existed. Until this morning, I was watching social media. One of my friends posted a video of his kid and 12 lunatics doing jumping jacks and Nautilus, and I'm like, hey, that's child abuse. Man, what happened to Billy Bees? It's a nice, comfortable place there. And then, to add insult to injury, I'm not friends with this guy anymore. Add insult to injury, I'm noticing that there's a common characteristic among all the kids at the Planet Fitness birthday party, and I realize, I know why I never heard of this thing. Because right before the invitations went out, there was a conversation at the kitchen table with the birthday boy, mom and dad. They're all saying, listen, Timmy, we know you want to have a Planet Fitness birthday party, but we really have to have a conversation with little Bobby. Not going to be able to keep up with all the other kids. I heard he has to grunt to get up on the treadmill, and I'm not losing my deposit. We can have a hot dog eating contest birthday party next year, and we can invite Bob. But we're not going to do it. And I couldn't take it anymore. I stopped the video. And I was like, you know what? I really need to take control of my life and do something about my weight. So I joined Planet Fitness. Fuckers got $20 from me this month. Son of a bitch. Yeah, and there goes my 2013 New Year's resolution. So, just one bad news bit after another. Maybe I'll get my 2023 New Year's resolution, because, I was smoking weed in my car before the show, thinking, I'm smoking a lot more this year. So, check. Some of you laughed, but that doesn't always benefit me, right? I got a call from my sister the other day. She's like, picking up my son at daycare. He's 5. He's like, we're walking through the car through a cloud of pot smoke. She hates pot smoke. She's like, imagine my surprise when he immediately brightens, looks up at me, and he's like, Uncle Bob's here. Thanks for throwing me under the bus, kid. Like, it was the Billy Bees parking lot that one time, okay? We agreed not to tell Mom about that. Right? It was the Forge Brewing Company parking lot tonight. Okay, so you gotta pretty strong case, but statistically, it can't be every parking lot, right? Because I was at Little Caesars the other day. You guys like Little Caesars? Not fans, but I love Little Caesars, and I think it's their tagline, pizza, pizza, right? So I'm getting 2 pizzas at Little Caesars the other day. Guy behind the counter is like, hey, you're the parking lot guy. I know I smelled you out there. What? Okay, fine, I'm the parking lot guy. Can I get my food, please? He's like, no, man, I was actually going to throw a free order of Crazy Bread in with those 2 pizzas. And I'm like, you know what, man, don't bother. Because you know what, there is nothing crazy at all about that bread. But you know what is pretty crazy? You guys got a cutlery shop out back called Little Brutus? Stabby, stabby. There you go. Speaking of assassinations, I will kill a bag of Dove chocolates. I love Dove chocolates, but I do have a problem with the inspirational messages that they write on the wrappers to the Dove chocolates, right? They're fine messages, there's just not enough of them. When you're housing a whole bag, there's gonna be repeats, right? I get a big bag of Dove chocolates, I open the first wrapper, ready to go, and I read the inspirational message. It says, you got this. Hell yeah, I got this. But then I open the next one, and it says, you got this. It's like, yeah, I know. Yeah, it's not my first rodeo, Dove. An hour later, surrounded by empty foil wrappers and 15 you got this, I'm starting to wonder what it is that I actually have. I'm pretty sure they call it diabetes at this point. So I tried some edibles recently. I don't know how you guys eat chocolate. People really breaking squares off? No, you take a bite like a human being, and that's what I did. I took a nice bite, waited the hour, they tell you the wait, nothing was happening, so I took another bite. And I'm standing here staring at the canal-shaped wedge of chocolate in my hand, like, what am I gonna do with this? So I finished the bar. And just then my wife comes in. She's like, oh, I didn't think you would be home. I didn't smell you out in the parking lot. It's like, you too? But then she stopped and she panicked a little bit. She's like, did you just eat that whole thing? There's dosing. I'm like, dosing? She's like, yeah, I think you're only supposed to eat 1 square at a time. Oh. So you're telling me we should probably find the insurance cards now, right? So we waited, another hour went by, then 2, then it hit me like a ton of bricks. This is exactly how I can convey to my colleagues how much weed I smoke. Didn't do anything. I've been better off with a bag of Dove chocolates and my pipe in a parking lot somewhere. That's how much weed I smoke. Commercial edibles do nothing. But with the amount of weed I smoke, you'd think that I'd be pretty good at packing the bowl, the pipe, but I'm not. And it's not like it's a tough skill to master either, right? It's a pinch of weed you put in the pipe, that's it. Every time I do, there's 3 grams on the table. I'm not even putting 3 grams in the bowl. And that got me thinking, you know, if I ever found a genie in a bottle and got 3 wishes, I wouldn't wish for money, no superpowers, none of that shit. I want all the weed dust that I brushed off my shirt over the years. Come in handy in a pinch. You know, my second wish, unique Dove chocolate wrappers for the rest of my life. Including the occasional one that says, Bob, this one's gonna get you really high. Promise. And my third wish is that I would be better at interacting with crowds at comedy shows. Because I gotta tell you something, folks. I don't know if you've noticed this or picked up on this, but I'm kind of an awkward person. I feel sometimes like I don't relate well with the public. It's weird. But I thought, it seems like a very intimate crowd tonight. Wonderful, wonderful crowd. Give it up for yourselves. Celtics have been a little nervous. You mind if I do a little offhand crowd work? No? Oh, you said no? We'll start with you. What's your name?
Jen.
Jen. Hi, Jen. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Tell me, Jen, in his 1973 book, could you tell me if David Musto adequately explained the origins of narcotic control in the United States?
I cannot.
Oh, you couldn't? Did you not read that book? Oh, this is awkward. I'm not really sure what to do. Would it help if you had the book, maybe? Because I actually always keep a copy with me. Maybe given the time that we have, you just...
Speed reading.
I hope you're really good at that, because I got about 2 more minutes slated for this crowd work thing. All right, we'll move on. How about you, sir? What's your name?
Carl.
Carl?
Yeah.
Hi, Carl. How are you? How about that? How's that? Very succinct. I feel like we made a connection, Carl. A little bit of a connection. Yeah, see? He's got vibes. This is great. I feel very confident now. How about you, sir? What's your name?
Eric.
I'm sorry?
Eric.
Eric. How are you, Eric? Good. Good baseline. Maybe follow-up? Eric, in his 2001 book called The Botany of Desire, what was your favorite plant story? You didn't read it either.
Heard of that?
You heard of it. That doesn't help me. Now, you don't expect that I have another copy of the book, do you? Because that would be ridiculous. And I actually don't have a copy of the book, but I do have a copy of the DVD adaptation. Seems very analog here, but maybe somebody could hook you up with a DVD player. Oh wait, actually I do have a copy of that book. Yeah, I do. So if you could just... All right, maybe crowd work isn't for me. Back to the jokes. So I think I figured out why they don't give serial killers parole. You ever wonder that? And I think it's because they can't find a job that fits their specific skill set. You don't believe me? Would you go to Jeffrey Dahmer's Exotic Meat Emporium for your next barbecue? Would you drop your kids off at John Wayne Gacy's Circus Daycare and Excavating? Would you take your sofa to Ed Gein's Skin Tight Upholstery for your next... I'm making my point, right? But I actually found out that I don't have what it takes to be a serial killer recently. You want to hear about it?
Sure.
It was admittedly a little strange, to say the least. I was in the guy's house. I had my hand around his neck and I'm squeezing the life out of him. And just before the life went out, I caught a reflection of myself in the mirror behind his head, and I saw my future, explaining the parole board. It's gonna be Bob's around the neck masseuse. I promise I can do this. And that's when I realized I actually can't do this, and so I let go. So I'm very sorry, sir. Some zinc cream will get those marks out in a couple of weeks. But I very much appreciate, it's kind of a life-changing experience for both of us, huh? I'll let myself out, kind of the way I came in, and I'll send someone out to repair the window. I get in trouble for telling that joke sometimes. Guy came up to me in Utica one night, and he was like, you really shouldn't joke about being a serial killer. I was like, well, Mr. Nixon, this is comedy, right? It's a bit. And you saw the whole bit, right? Like I let go, I'm not really a serial killer. Like if you want to be called the Subway sandwich artist, you gotta finish a couple of subs, right? You gotta learn how to roll it in that paper and shove it in the bag, try to fit the napkins in. And throw it over your shoulder, lug it out to the truck. I think I'm mixing metaphors here. Do you guys see a few months back that they unveiled President Obama's presidential White House portrait? Did you notice that? I was thinking about presidential portraits, and I realized, we always remember our presidents as old men, right? Except Kennedy. Yeah, that's a presidential assassination joke. And because you laughed, I'm going to continue, okay? Because good for Kennedy, right? I mean, what did Kennedy do? He led a botched invasion of Cuba, he completely ignored the civil rights movement, and he led the world to the brink of nuclear annihilation. You're telling me a half a car ride in Dallas puts him in generational president territory? I don't think so. And I wrote this joke, because I get in trouble for telling this one too. Told this joke like 4 years ago, it was pretty edgy. Now it feels just kind of mean, right? You think assassination would do anything for President Biden's profile? No. It didn't do anything for James Garfield, right? See, nobody remembers that we had a James Garfield president. There's more to that, but I think we got time for one more. So I was on the internet recently. I saw one of those meme things. And it kind of threw me off. It said, you should treat the janitor with the same level of respect that you treat the CEO. I was like, wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense. Right? We're talking about a chief executive officer here. Like, I've never been in a bathroom, saw a janitor plunging a toilet and said, we should really confiscate this guy's wealth and redistribute it to the masses. I mean, I've never winked at a passing CEO in recognition of the impending working class revolution. And I've never sized up a janitor's neck for the stocks of my 18th century French Revolution guillotine. Because I'll tell you, I have a lot of respect for janitors. My dad was a janitor. And when I was Sorry, Mike. Sorry, folks. It's just, God damn it. This is going so well. You'll have to excuse me. This joke's kind of hard to tell because my dad recently passed. And he died like at the pinnacle of his career. He'd just been named CEO. And just before I pulled the cord and the blade fell, he looked up at me and he said, I love you, son. Well, it's more like, I love you, son. But there's no way that crowd work bit's gonna go over. Did you finish that book yet? You didn't even crack it open. I'm gonna need it back, because I gotta bring that back to the library. I need the DVD and the book back, because I gotta bring that back to the library. My name is Bob Beach. You've been great. Thank you so much.